Welcome to a very special episode of the Old Dirty Basement podcast. Today, we are privileged to bring you a unique perspective on the TMI disaster. Our host mothers Sharon, Rose, and Rita join us to share their personal stories and vivid memories from those harrowing days. As mothers of Dave, Matt, and Zap, they witnessed firsthand the fear, uncertainty, and resilience that defined that era. Join us as we journey back in time through their eyes to understand the impact of the TMI disaster on their lives and the community. Stay tuned for an emotional and insightful episode.
This is the Old Dirty Basement, home to debauchery, madness, murder, and mayhem. A terror-filled train ride deep into the depths of the devil's den.
With a little bit of humor,
history, and copious consciousness.
I'm your announcer, Shallow Throat. Your hosts are Dave, Matt, and Zap. I love you, Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right.
hey, this is Dave,
Matt, and Zap. And welcome to the Old Dirty Basement,
where every week we cover a true crime,
murder, or compelling story.
So sit back,
relax, and comprehend.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Old Dirty Basement. I am Matt. With me always is Dave and Zap, and we have three special guests today.
Indeed.
Indeed. We have all of our mothers with us. So you may or may not remember our last episode. We covered the soup to nuts story of the incident at 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania. Today with us, we have the three ladies that birthed us and lived through it and are here to tell their tale. So this is really exciting. And also, I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize to all of our mothers here. That was not a satanic ritual song that
Yes.
opened this up. Didn't want you to be scared about that.
Sorry about Shallow Throat. He's a good gentleman.
Yes.
He goes to church.
He's a good guy. No, he is a good guy.
It's just part of the beginning of the show. It has nothing to do with anything.
That's right. And if Matt and I sound a little off, we're on like mobile mics, so we might be a little lower. But
Yes, we have our moms on the equipment.
We got 6 mics going here, so yeah. So why don't we introduce everybody? I'll introduce first my mom, Sharon. How's it going, Sharon?
Good.
All right, I'll introduce my mom. Rita, how's it going?
Well, thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for being here, Ma.
And I guess I'll follow suit and introduce my mom. Rose, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you, and it's fun and glad. I'm very glad to be here
Yes,
with all of you.
Have any of you guys ever experienced anything like this? Have you ever? Do you know this is going to be worldwide?
Yeah, worldwide.
This will be available for the entire internet listening and podcast listening public, which dominates the whole globe.
I don't know if you ladies knew this. We're very big in Ghana.
We were number one in Ghana for a week.
In Ghana.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a country.
That's a thing.
For sure. So Rose and Sharon were on a phone call before, but Rita, this is your first time hanging out with us on the podcast, so welcome, and we're happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So why don't we get into it, Zap?
Yeah. So again, we just to remind everyone, this is a follow-up. This is a special edition of having lived through the incident at 3 Mile Island, which happened in the wee hours of the morning on Wednesday, March 28th, 1979. So, all of you or each of you, one by one, just to get things off, just to get the listeners to maybe know a little more about you, a little about your history. So back in March of 1979, were you working for an employer at the time? And if so, who was your employer? Conversely, might you instead have been a stay-at-home mom? Sharon, why don't we start with you?
Okay, I was working at Red Barn Restaurants on Dairy Street.
Oh, Red Barn.
Yeah.
I was working third shift, 3 a.m. to 11.
Oh, my gosh. I remember that place.
And we were listening to the radio when we heard about 3 Mile Island.
Wow.
But I called my boss right away and told him, I'm leaving, 11 o'clock when my shift's done. I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here. He said, you leave, you're fired. I left.
Jeez.
Really? They used that at a time where they didn't know.
Yep.
Wow.
Wow.
See, now that's a shame because I remember that. That's right by that's catty corner to St. Catharines, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was
Right
a
by
Payless shoe
Payless shoe store.
place there as well.
Yeah. I remember that. I definitely. Hell, I went to birthday parties there.
I had birthday parties there. I
That's
remember.
awesome.
They had great sausage biscuits.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure,
So
that's not confused with McDonald's, right? Because I have birthday parties there.
there, yeah. No, that was if you had a birthday party at Red Barn, you were baller.
That's right.
For sure. So
I was not there.
you said, "Look, I'm getting out of here. I'm working through my shift, but I'm getting the hell out of Dodge."
I said, somebody better be here at 11 a.m. or I'm closing. Nobody came, so I closed.
Wow. And they said goodbye. No more job for you.
Nobody was there. I just left. I closed everybody, sent everybody home. That was
with
it.
them. Good. I say good for you. You probably chose wisely.
Yeah, and then when we finally went away, came home, I had all these answer machine from him asking me to come back. But I didn't. I actually went down to Channel. I don't know if you remember that place.
Yeah, Channel. That was like a Heckinger's or
or like Home Depot.
a precursor to Home Depot. Yep.
I went down there and worked, and then eventually I got a job at Highmark.
Nice. That's great. Wow. Dear Rose,
Yes.
March of 1979. Where were you working? Were you a stay-at-home mom? By working, again, for an employer, because with absolute assurity, I can promise you that being a stay-at-home mom is a working full-time job. So were you working at home or were you working for an employer?
I worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in the federal building downtown on Walnut and 3rd Street. And
That's downtown Harrisburg.
what did I say?
You said downtown.
I'm just letting everybody, downtown Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Anyway, I had gone to Dolphin Deposit, the old bank, remember? Dolphin Deposit Bank.
Oh, Dolphin Deposit.
And it was at the time when we didn't have direct deposit yet. So I had that payroll check in my hand, and all of a sudden there was a buzz in that bank about something very bad had happened at 3 Mile Island. And so I go back to the office, and that was a buzz too. I tried calling Matthew's dad, George. Couldn't get a hold of him. The phones were jammed. Tried calling my babysitter with the kids. Matthew at the time was 3 years old. He had just turned 3 in January. And Kimberly, my daughter, was 6 months old. And I remember saying to my boss, I said, I can't get a hold of anybody. I think I have to go. Oh, no. We've got to get this newsletter out to the farmers and the ranchers. Our producers need to know this new program. We've got to get it out. And I'm like, oh, dear. I didn't know what to do. And I kept trying to call anybody that I could. Couldn't get a hold of anybody. We did have the radio on, and it was just a scary thing, a scary time, because we started hearing about evacuate. They didn't even know. And it was one of those things that was the unknown. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, they're going to send my husband in one direction. The kids are going to go in another direction, because we're starting to have plans on evacuation. But not to worry. Nothing really was, a problem. Nothing was going on.
That would be something. Before cell phones, it's hard to get hold of everybody.
Sure.
So you do have that worry, I guess, of, are you going to go one way, I'm going to go another way, and try to connect? Like, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I got to believe that people were being pushed all over the place. So, wow. Okay, so you were working downtown at the time. Okay, this is good to know. Now, I heard you and my mom talking earlier that you two happen to be old bus riding buddies together.
Bus people, yes.
Yeah. So you're riding public transportation. Awesome. Good for you. Rita, March 28th, 1979. Where were you working at home? Or were you working for an employer?
Well, I did a little both. I was primarily a stay-at-home mom. You were 2.5.
Thanks, Mom.
And I worked every other Saturday at Pomeroy's. I was an auditor there.
Oh.
And so actually our TV was on, but it would have had to have been Captain Kangaroo or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Mr.
did
Green
not
Cheeks.
hear anything really important other than, the best I can do is the best I can do, and I'm doing the best that I can.
That's
and
right.
that was Captain Kangaroo.
That's right.
That's all I knew about 3 Mile Island that day.
And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. All right. I wanted to get that out just to get the groundwork. So where you were again at the time when, for arguably not much of anyone knew about it when it went down. I mean, this thing went down at whatever in the morning.
Quick question: that Pomeroy's, was that downtown as
Down
well?
It was on
Harrisburg.
4th Street, yeah.
Wow, I didn't even realize there was a Pomeroy's down there.
4th and Market
Back
for
in the
sure.
day.
They
Okay.
they tore it down, turned it into the parking lot, and then now they built the Whitaker.
Whitaker Center.
Is it? Is that what they built there?
I think so. Like
No, Whitaker's the
G-Man
third.
used to be there.
It's down further. I think it's Harrisburg University.
Oh, okay.
Maybe, but I just remember they had the best lunches there on the second
Yeah.
floor.
Now, I picked up on something interesting you guys were saying. You're saying it's March 28th, 1979.
Wednesday.
And like you're saying TMI, I guess you just thought that was 3 Mile Island. They have power there. Nobody knew exactly what radiation or radioactivity or anything like controlling it. You guys just thought, hey, it's power.
Yep.
It's lighting us up. So that's something that I think that's where, like, I don't know if people were afraid or there was no fear, because I don't think anybody really understood nuclear power.
I wonder, Matt, if you're reading into the next question, because that in fact is the next question.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, Matt. Look, you and I actually, despite anyone else's dislike of it, you and I think alike a lot.
Great minds. Huh?
Great
true, very
minds.
true.
So it's like we just feed off of one another. It's like
But I
sharing the
just thought
same brain.
It was interesting of what they said. Like, your mom was, nobody really knew. It was just, hey,
Right.
something's going on with this nuclear power plant.
Nuclear.
Like, what do we do?
And there it is. Well, so with that, now leaning toward now the nuclear age. So the first commercial nuclear power plant in the United States opened in 1958. Mom, you would have been 18 at the time, with a number of additional plants opening the following decades. So, do you recall the dawn and progression of what was then known as the atomic age, all the futuristic aspects associated with it, the vision for clean energy for all? And with that in mind, exactly what Matt had asked, what was your knowledge of nuclear power, radioactivity, or radiation at the time of the TMI incident? Sharon, go ahead, Rita, lead us off.
Actually, nothing. But in 1951, I was 11 years old. I was in elementary school, and the big news of that year was the Nobel Prize in Physics to two men who were connected with the splitting of the atom. So that would have been my first hearing of anything of the sort, and I didn't know, and I was 11, I didn't care.
That's right. That's right. Dear Rose.
Yes, sir.
Please tell us at the time, what did you know about, even growing up, that atomic age, that futuristic world, clean energy, nuclear power is great for everybody. It's awesome. What did you know about nuclear power, radioactivity,
Well,
radiation?
I
Good
was
story.
born in New Mexico, New Mexico, Los Alamos.
Well, there was testing there, I believe. That's where they
Well, they
exploded the
tested
first
in
bomb.
White Sands. They made the bomb there in Los Alamos. Lots of scientists.
Aliens.
Well, that's in Roswell.
That's Roswell,
Oh,
New
okay.
Mexico.
Okay.
But my sister was born there. My dad worked for Zia Company. And I just remember hearing that Zia Company owned the town, And we lived in this little, I think they were called Denver homes. They were just a small little home. And I remember my dad worked there, and I remember him telling the story that, because he was just a worker, an ordinary worker, and he says, before I left, they used to hose us down with water, a hose,
Like
And
delousing.
For the radioactivity.
Yeah.
the
Radiation.
yes.
That's insane.
So he did end up with cancer,
Oh,
and he died very young. He was 68. And like I said, my sister was born there, and she always thought, she got this weird disease that had to be investigated with this at the CDC in Atlanta. It was called poliomyelitis, something like that, where it affected her muscles, it affected her bones. Where one day she just fell, and they couldn't pinpoint what was wrong with her. And she said to us later on, she goes, "I wonder if it had anything to do with being born in Los Alamos." I don't know.
maybe the
But
radioactivity.
anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
So-
that's my.
I mean, that really is something. You came up where it started. I mean, they were hell, if I read correctly. So if we dropped a bomb, in 1945. I think that was August. I think they were still one of the first tests or last tests might have been like in June of that year. So, I mean, wow, again, you came up like right at the birth of it all. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Did that have anything to do with when you heard about this at TMI? Did you kind of know what that was, nuclear power? Or
not really. But I don't know if I'm remembering this right or not, but I remember seeing that movie.
With Jane Fonda.
That's the next question.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on.
But I think we had seen that before 3 Mile Island had occurred. Did that happen first?
It absolutely did. It absolutely did.
Foreshadowing.
And that all just brought just kind of everything back.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Dear Sharon, tell us about your knowledge of radioactivity, radioactive.
Free to say, Dear Prudence,
nuclear power, the atomic age.
I didn't have any. I didn't know anything about TMI. I mean, I knew it was down there, but I didn't know what it did. What was the purpose of it? We had family that lived down there, but nobody talked about it.
It's amazing to hear down there.
Yeah.
So in today's day and age, right, people are driving incredible distances just to go to work. So from here, let's say where we record in Dave's basement, all the way to TMI, I mean, that's
40 minutes.
You're looking at a half hour, 40 minutes. But to any one commuter nowadays, that's no big deal at all.
No deal at all.
I mean, hell, some of us drive for a living. I mean, that's what you do.
The jobs that were high-paying jobs, you're talking engineers, you're talking
at TMI.
Yes. The Med Ed, I think, was the ones that owned that.
It was 10 miles south of Harrisburg, correct? Is that, so that's where we grew up.
An Eminem movie.
Yeah, call it 3 Mile.
We were, I don't know how close that was, but I know in Middletown it was 5 miles.
Yeah. You were in the immediate perimeter. You were certainly in the immediate perimeter. So there was another question I had just thinking about this on the way over. So I know I can certainly say when we came here, but just really quickly, did the three of you live here like all of our lives? Were you already all established here by the time each of us were born? Like, did you? Yeah. Like, so Sharon,
I grew up in Harrisburg.
Grew up in Harrisburg. Okay. You knew it all the way through. Rose, were you living here at the time when Matt was born?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
My children are born here. I was born in New Mexico.
Right.
I didn't come till 71.
And Rita, how about you?
I moved to Pennsylvania from Illinois in 1977. John was exactly 1 year. We actually moved on his birthday. So.
Yeah.
Wow. See, look at that. It was my birthday, but really the area, it was a gift for them.
Yes.
That's right.
It was a gift for them. So Rose, I want to start with you since you left it off on that note. So I have one of my questions here, as chance would have it. The movie, The China Syndrome, had been released in theaters 12 days prior to the events at 3 Mile Island. Just 12 days before. Did you see the movie prior to the events?
I did.
So that's got to be something crazy to see the screen come to life. Like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing this. Like, is this, somebody's messing with my mind here.
It was weird. It was scary. I don't know. It's hard to describe. But after this happened, I thought, oh my God, it was like just reliving that movie.
Sure.
In this movie.
Sharon, how about you? Did you see the movie before the incident?
Nope. I heard the name of it, but I wasn't into all that.
Sure. Have you ever seen the movie?
Nope.
Okay.
Till this day, not.
Maybe that was promotion for TMI, like for the movie. I'm
like
sorry.
a truth lie.
Yeah, like the TMI thing was like promotional for the movie.
Yeah.
To get people to go. It could have been.
I don't. Oh, it could have been. That's right.
Yeah,
but
the movie wasn't doing well. 12 days in.
Yeah,
hey, look what we did.
It's true.
Get out there.
It's almost. It's like almost like assassinating a former president.
Yeah.
Yes. Just an earshot.
Earshot. Rita, how about you? Did you see the movie prior to the event?
No, I didn't hear about it until afterwards, and actually, it happened to show up on TV one time, and that's when I watched it.
Oh, okay. So what like how Warriors comes on the TV back then.
That's right.
Yeah.
China Syndrome.
China Syndrome.
I've never seen it. Have either you two?
I think yes, I've seen it a few. Actually, I think China Syndrome I saw at your cousin's house.
Probably.
I think that was on like an HBO.
Yeah.
At the time.
It's funny. We were driving over here just really quickly for everyone. So my mom and I were talking about it, and she was trying to figure out where my aunt was at the time, and Dave and Tim. Mm-hmm. And I said, Ma, they didn't live here then. They didn't move here until, at least 1980, if not 81 or 82. So that explains so much.
Okay.
Yeah. How about that? All right. So, as we had mentioned, this incident began on a Wednesday. By the end of the day after, Thursday, national news outlets were reporting on the TMI incident as though it were a dire disaster. Yet, local officials and local news outlets were reporting that the incident was minor and there was nothing about which to be concerned. Sharon, did you receive any phone calls from anyone outside of the area, like somebody from other states or anything like that were asking about the incident, asking why you were still in the area or recommending that you flee?
Yes, I have an aunt that lives in Altoona, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
her and her husband and my cousins. And she called and asked, what's going on down there? And I said, well, I heard on the radio that there's a meltdown, something going on down 3 Mile Island. She says, I know, we heard it all up here. You need to get out of there now. So I called my mom. Of course, my mom got everybody together, my grandparents, my sister and her husband and kids. And I got a hold of my husband, and we left. We left on Thursday the next day, and we stayed there till Sunday. She said they're telling everybody to get out 50 miles out of the area. Well, we went farther than that, but still. We left, and we didn't come home till Sunday. And nobody, even in our neighborhood, nobody left. Nobody's talked about it. It's like it's just another day to them.
So that's where you stayed in Altoona then. You got out.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Dad's name, Flea.
You flee.
We should have known.
It makes so much sense.
Did you flee?
That makes so much sense.
We did.
Mom, Rita, how about you? Did anyone call you from, I don't know, I know you had family in Chicago and you had family in
I had
California.
family in Illinois and California, and I believe they both called, and probably, you're welcome to come here. That was about all.
So where did you end up going, or did you stay put?
I stayed put.
God bless her. She's a fighter. Dear Rose, how about you? Did you receive calls from New Mexico or any place else?
Oh, I'm sure we all got calls, but we had to be evacuated. We were within 5 miles.
Yes, we were.
But I remember when I finally said to my boss and everybody at work, I said, I'm leaving. And I didn't go get my kids because I wanted to know in our neighborhood.
Wait, you left us there.
I wouldn't have gone in either. I would have left.
I would have left me there too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks. That explains it.
No, I went to the neighborhood.
So you and my dad left.
No,
My biologicals didn't bother.
my 6-month-old sister and I were left at the house.
Look, you have bread and mayonnaise.
I
You're
never
fine.
left from him, but I did want to go to the neighborhood to see who was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was like deserted, and it was the eeriest feeling
Sure.
that I had because it was just nobody was there. And then I think my imagination started running wild because then I'm thinking, what am I smelling?
Are you sure it wasn't drug induced by TMI?
What am I smelling here? It's like a funny smell. And then, like a fool, I didn't even go in the house yet. I just
Was it
went
Matt's
on the-
diapers? No.
Yeah, where were your kids while this was going on?
Take care of your kids.
Where are the kids?
You
Get your
were-
babies out the street.
You're still at Aunt Joyce's. You were at the
So you
babysitter.
passed this on. Thank you, Mom.
And then because I didn't know,
Mom,
it was
it's a fun part.
it was the
Yes,
unknown.
yes.
It was the unknown.
Yeah.
Couldn't get a hold of your grandparents. Couldn't get a hold of anybody. So I just wanted to know what the people in our neighborhood were doing, but hardly anybody was home.
It's interesting. Our neighborhood is called Riverview Drive, so there wasn't really Riverview. It's just a look at TMI.
Yes.
The top
what you
of our
can see.
hill.
It's 100%.
And
That's
it was
absolutely
just,
true.
It was a small block,
Yeah,
too.
it was just one street, but it was Riverview Drive, and the Riverview was TMI.
Yep.
That's
So
cool.
we were right there.
I miss that a great deal.
Yeah, right at the top. Of the hill.
I loved that house. I loved that street. It was great. You had great neighbors. No, I
Yeah, they
loved
were
that.
fun.
Good time.
They were fun.
That was a good one. It's interesting that, Matt, your mom mentions Joyce as Aunt Joyce. So Joyce was actually certainly not your real aunt. Instead, though, that woman has been featured, and I mean a lot, on a lot of TMI-related material. She's been on, Netflix movies. She's been in documentaries. She's been in all kinds of stuff. So, and look, she lived it. She, not for nothing, she did, in fact, act as that neighborhood mom. And, we all had those coming up. Everybody's moms knew everybody else's moms. And heck, everybody called everybody else's mom. It's just the way it worked.
Yeah, we were like latchkey kids, I guess.
Absolutely. And it was awesome.
Where you could go to
No,
anybody's
she was
house.
the best. She was the best.
But I would like to talk to try to get my Aunt Joyce for our one show to maybe call in.
Yeah, sure.
See if she can talk for a minute or
Sure,
two.
sure.
She's very knowledgeable.
See the one that was on the Meltdown documentary. Yeah,
Correct.
that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd see her at every protest afterwards. She was a big,
That's what I'm saying. As a kid,
big
we were
advocate against it.
I think in one of the movies there was me as a child because she would drag us along to like these protests and rallies, and that's one thing I remember from being a child.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So this is now we're into essentially basically day 2. So at the time, now we're just into day 2, second day. This is just Thursday. So at that time, what was your main mechanism of receiving news updates? Was it the television or the radio? And how glued to that mechanism for those first days or two were you relative to the TMI incident? Like, is it something again? Like I'm not put. Is it like watching the OJ trial? Or did you just go about your day, and if you happen to hear about it later, well, then, okay, I happen to hear about it later. Let's start with Ma.
I guess our main source was television, and it was on all the time. We kept waiting for information to what we were supposed to do. Where were we supposed to leave? Where were we supposed to stay put? And the information, would change from hour to hour, what was going on, what you're supposed to do. And I do remember there were signs posted in the area and beyond. I don't remember if they were color-coded or letter-coded or number. And if you're going to be evacuated, you had to follow your sign.
Sure. Just like when there was a gas shortage, there was odd numbers and then even numbers.
Absolutely. You could not. They didn't want everybody on 81 on the same at the same time. But we just kept waiting, and you had to check with the news all the time because it kept changing, what was going on.
That's interesting. That'll lead into our next question, which I'm very anxious to get to. But in the meantime, dear Rose, what were you doing? Were you glued to the television or were you listening to the radio?
Well, I think that first night, I think we went to Matthew and Kimberly's grandparents in Oberlin to spend the night.
Steal
and then,
George.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up going to an aunt and uncle's
I thought you were
house
going to say St. Lawrence Club.
in Minersville. And I remember on our way there, just listening to the radio. And I don't think we watched much TV. I don't recall that when we were there, but just worrying. And then I remember Kimberly, my daughter, was so sick. She was running a really high temperature, and she broke out in this rash all over her body. Of course, right away, I'm thinking radiation.
Yeah,
She's
radiation poison.
That's what we blame it on.
My goodness. Oh, my goodness. Sharon, how about... I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we stayed there 3 nights, came back on Sunday because I thought, well, I've got to go back to work on Monday. And later on, when I did show up, they said, well, you could have probably stayed 2 weeks off,
Government.
But,
Yeah.
Wait a second. Anyway, all right. Sharon, how about you? Those first couple of days, were you glued? Was it like the OJ or what?
We were still in Altoona. So we didn't want the little ones to hear about everything that's going on. So we didn't all stay at my aunt's. Most of us stayed in a hotel. So, of course, the hotel had a swimming pool. So we took all the kids down to the pool area just to get them out of listening to all this because they wouldn't understand it anyhow. And why explain it to them?
Sure.
So that's about it. And we didn't hear it. Then when we did, we were back in the room. Then we went down to my aunt's. And, of course, they had it plastered on all the TVs. The radios were on because the radio has different information the TV has on. So what do you believe?
Who do you believe?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. That still happens this day. So, who do you believe?
I hope
in?
that was an indoor pool.
It was.
I was going to say.
It was an indoor-outdoor.
Yeah.
Let it rain.
I was going to say. It'd be
But
cold.
Altoona is what from central Pennsylvania area? That's about an hour and a half, 2 hours north.
About 2.
It's
northeast?
towards Pittsburgh,
Give or
between here
take
and
2,
Pittsburgh.
2.5, yeah.
Oh, so Altoona
Northwest.
is west.
West. Fun fact on that.
Fun fact.
And I don't know why I'm only a month older than you, Matt, but a couple months older than you, Zach. But I have one memory of TMI during that whole thing, and I don't know why I remember this. It was the first time I had Gatorade. We stopped somewhere on the way to Altoona, and I remember my Pap bringing out a bottle of Gatorade. It was like, I think the lemon lime flavor or whatever. And I have that memory. That's all I remember about that trip and everything else.
Even more fun fact, that's back when Gatorade came in glass
It was
bottles.
a glass bottle, yes.
I think Gatorade came out, 79?
Metal lids.
Really?
Yeah.
It came out in the 60s. It was in
Oh,
Florida.
okay. Yeah,
Actually, that's
Florida,
where
the
it
Gator
started,
ate.
the Gators. Yeah, but I guess it was being distributed, but that's my memory of it. And then the T-shirts that came later on. I survived TMI.
And then, so they're 2 hours towards Pittsburgh. Where were we at, Mom? In Marysville. Where is that from Central PA?
Minersville.
Marysville.
That's
Shamokin?
Yeah, that's 81 north. That's on the way to Mount Carmel.
So again,
Shamokin,
about 2 hours, an hour and a half.
No, it was less than that. I don't think it was that many miles away.
Yeah, Minersville. Minersville is between let's call it Pottsville and Mount Carmel. So let's say it's an hour, 15 hour and a half.
It's about an hour.
Minersville?
I think that's what it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe so.
There's a guy at work. He's a couple years older than us, and I was talking about this today. He said like they went to Duncannon. I'm like, man, you're cutting it close because they said 20 miles. I mean, that's like 21 miles or whatever. I'm like, wouldn't you
But they were upriver, so it would protect them.
The bare minimum, I guess.
And Miss Zap, you guys were in Highspire at the time?
What?
You guys were at Highspire at the time?
I mean, we lived in Highspire, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where you were at. You stayed put in Highspire.
So far, for 2 days now. So if we're on Thursday, we were definitely still there, I believe. Now, I believe that at least, if not two of you, probably all three of you ladies had mentioned the confusing reports. So Metropolitan Edison, also known as MedEd, the owners of the TMI plant at the time, initially alerted the public that there was nothing about which to be concerned. As the hours and days progressed, Pennsylvania Governor Dick Thornburgh and Lieutenant Governor Bill Scranton, having only been in office for 2 months, released follow-up mixed signals, thereby creating confusion between MedEd sources on one side versus the intelligence they were receiving from their experts in PA and Washington, D.C. Now, local authorities and news outlets were only as good as the information they were given. So, with all of that in mind, with respect solely to the first few days of the incident, do you recall the series of mixed signals that were given and any feelings of confusion you and your families were experiencing at the time? Rose, I'd love to start with you.
Yes, it was total confusion. I remember watching TV and seeing Jimmy Carter come into town, and they put that white garb. I don't know if you remember that. It was it looked like a beekeeper's kind of thing. Oh, yeah. And anyway, everybody was saying something different. And again, just like this COVID thing, it was the unknown. You didn't know what to do, what to think, who to believe. It was not a good thing.
Did people think it started getting real when the president shows up? People are like, what is this gentleman doing here? Is this? Did it add gravity to the situation?
I mean, he had to come. He had to see what was going on. So many people affected.
Yeah. How was that? So, Rose, you mentioned your neighborhood, and again, I remember coming up as a kid, and I've been in that neighborhood dozens and dozens of times. When you mentioned the at one point, it seemed so desolate and it was eerie. Again, did you, before you had skipped town, or before you had skipped town, of course, made your way to Minersville? Was there hubbub amongst the neighbors as well? Like everybody's a flurry, because you were by far and away the closest of, the three moms here. You were certainly the closest one there. Nearest to TMI.
Like I said, when I went home that first day, when I heard about it, there was nobody,
wow.
nobody around.
The neighbors.
And I think they'd probably evacuated. And maybe afterwards, I don't know, maybe it was just, and our neighbor across the street worked for MedEd. And he didn't really have much to say about it. I think they were so busy.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Just another day at the office. Sure.
Yeah. So,
wow. There it is. Sharon, in fact, you were certainly one of the most vocal recently about, you heard one from one guy, and then you heard something else from the other guy, and the radio was conflicting with the television. So again, how did that confusion? I mean, you're again, now you've already certainly left too. You've already hightailed it up to Altoona, but did you keep in touch with any of your neighbors back here? Again, how does that process in your head when you're hearing one thing from one guy and something else from somebody else?
My mother-in-law had family down in Middletown. Uncle Joe and them, he owned a mansion house.
Oh yeah,
in Middletown.
Yeah. Really?
And they never left. None of them left.
Okay.
None of the aunts, uncles, cousins, they all stayed. And her sister lived right across the front yard, right across the 3 mile, and she could see all the
right there from the
towers.
Yeah.
None of them left.
Huh. I used to love their food.
And none of the people in our neighborhood where we lived when we came back, none of those people left either.
That's amazing.
We were the only ones that ran.
You say amazing. I think it's just because you don't know what it is. You're just like, oh, it's something that makes power. Like, I don't.
It was like another
Can't
day
harm
to
us.
them.
That's fair. That's fair.
And if I can just say that the reason that we left was because it was a mandatory evacuation. It was anybody within 5 mile radius or pregnant or parents with small children under 5, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, Kimberly was born, right? She was 6 months, you said?
Yes.
My sister, okay.
That's what my wife actually was a TMI baby. So she was born July of 79. So I remember her mom was saying how they had to do follow-up, like checkups, I think, or something along those lines because she was pregnant with Michelle during this whole ordeal. So I was wondering about Kim because I know they're about the same age. So she was already born at this point. Yeah.
And I took her to the doctor, and I guess it was kind of just some virus. They didn't know what had caused all this. I guess a virus.
TMI COVID. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Dang China.
Rita, Ma, how about you? What? How you still haven't left yet? You're still in High Spire.
We're still home, but and actually, what it was because the news kept changing. It was should we stay or should we go, and that's how we lived for another day or so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I get, and that kind of makes sense. I guess I should say it doesn't make sense, but I can understand it that you're from a public relations perspective. Med Ed's going to put out everything's okay, relax, everything's fine. And yet then not shortly thereafter, you have the governor, lieutenant governor, you have local officials, you have people from DC chiming in saying, you might want to consider doing this. You might want to consider doing that. So I can understand it completely that you're just getting mixed signals. And it's, how were you, did you get any input from the neighbors at the time? Like, were you talking to the Sheehan's or the?
Well, there were a number of little kids real close to us, right at that same corner, about 5 or 6 little kids. And, you just didn't see anybody, so you don't know where they left or they hiding. Staying in their
house
home.
or staying inside.
That's amazing. So it's man, you're all leading into these questions just so well. The next question, just little thoughts here. So, nuclear contamination is in fact an invisible threat. There's no way to see it, hear it, touch it, taste it, smell it before any sort of official evacuation was recommended by authorities at the time. How unnerving and tense were your considerations of fleeing versus staying at home and risking the invisible threat? And, did you and your family give serious considerations to the possible consequences of, just packing a few suitcases, leaving everything behind and, possibly having to start over from scratch? Sharon, let's start with you. When you have this thing that's coming down the road and you just hear it coming over the radio, it sounds to me like you didn't think twice. That you were just, look, let's drop everything. Let's get the hell out of here.
Well, it's because my family was going. I didn't want to be staying here, and then they left, and would have happened something that happened to us.
Right.
And then I had an argument with his dad, David's dad, because he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay.
Flea didn't want to flee.
Nope, he didn't want to flee. And I said, well, I'm going with or without. And I went over to my mom's, and I took the kids with me. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, he's coming down the road. He said, well, I'm not staying here if you're not staying here. So he came with us. But he wanted to stay home.
Yeah.
Was
there a game on or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
Cowboys were on Monday Night Football.
It's the black and white, it's the Westerns,
That's fantastic.
Or maybe it's like, if I get to work, like the next day, there'll be nobody in. It's like one of those easy days.
Driving around that
forklift. Day of
forklift.
work, yeah. It'll be a nice day.
All right, so Mom, I want to go with you next because so far you're still in town.
Staying put, yeah.
And with that, so again, what thoughts were going through your head of Christ? We just heard from Sharon that God, if you leave the work now, you're fired, you're done. So. There's the possibility, depending on employers at the time, there's no protections in place. What happens if you are you toying with that back and forth of, gosh, if I pick up and go, I'm going to lose my job. And what do we take with us? What's going to happen? Do we leave stuff here? Or this is probably before the idea of looters ever really came into vogue. There's no riots and stuff like that. People know what looting was, or at least there wasn't a term for it. But anyway, I'm filling your answers in the blanks here for you. Go right ahead.
Well, after, listening for a couple of days, we decided it didn't sound terribly urgent and we would leave, but intending to leave only for a short time. So we weren't planning on packing up and, never seeing our house again. It was just going to be till this blows over, and we'll be back.
Okay. And again, Rose, you said you it was basically you that day you had gotten the equivalent of the evacuation order or something along those lines, and you got home that day from work, and everybody was gone, so you were ready to go. There was no consideration. You're like, let's go, let's pack, let's go. It was, or was there certainly that fear? You're emptying you're leaving your home. I mean, what do you take with you? Do I take my hair dryer?
Did my dad did he take a keg with him?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't there to decide. I mean, we still
everybody's
communicated.
There's no communication.
Yeah.
And like I said, I finally picked up you and your sister, went over to your grandma's and grandpa's, and then he met us there. We spent the night there. We go back, I think, the next day, and I gathered a few things, but I think we wanted to get out. Again, the fear of the unknown. You just don't know. You don't know, like you're saying, what to take with you, what to pack, how long are we going to be gone? Do we take important papers? I mean, I don't know if that even crossed our mind, because it was just, it was scary times.
Did Pap and Grandma go?
No.
They stayed put?
They stayed put. Like I said, we were mandatory evacuation.
Okay.
Was your dad at the depot at the time?
Yes.
That's where my dad was working at the depot at the time.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something going on there they didn't want to. They didn't want to leave.
It was like some sort of coverage that came over it.
By depot, do you mean Legion or VFW?
Army depot.
The Army depot. It was actually an Army depot in, I think, 79.
I understand that, but not far from there is a VFW.
Oh,
Legion.
yes, yeah. Maybe something's going on there.
Like
That was
here.
March Madness was maybe on.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So that you've already beat me basically to the next question, so the incident happened on a Wednesday. The official announcement came on Friday, March 30th, that pregnant women and young children.
Oh, is that Friday?
Yeah, it's fine. And, Rose, you're fine. By the way, you are a saint. You're amazing. Thank you again, all of you. Thank all three of you for being with us and doing this with us. This is great. That 5-mile radius was increased to a 20-mile radius. And at that point, it's not a question as to whether to evacuate. It's just a question of how fast can you get the hell out of there. So you've already answered the days you decided to leave. Sharon, you got out immediately. Rose, you weren't out not long after.
So we're in Altoona, Minersville, and you guys are ready to leave now.
Yeah, we decided,
Okay.
well, we'll take John, and we took him up to...
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Again, it was another where our parents were leaving us. My mom was like, well, I went home, and I was hanging out. And I was like,
I guess we should take the kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we packed everything up for John to go up to my in-laws for about a week. And then my husband and I just went home. And it never dawned on me, what if something bad happens to us here?
So you dropped
and he's
young Zap off
up there.
And where was up there?
Well, near Mount Carmel.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Just
Just
up Shamokin up in
It's actually
coal country.
It is on the road between Mount Carmel and Centralia. It's smack dab in the lovely town of Wilburton. Peaceways up the road.
And this is before the fire up there and all that stuff.
It's after the fire.
When did the Centralia fire start?
Well, since we did a podcast on it,
I don't remember though. I thought that was in the 60s, wasn't it?
the late 60s, early 70s.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Centralia, it was burning.
But it was still people living there at that time.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I got
That's kind of like their own little TMI.
It was.
You could call
Yeah.
It was.
There's disasters
Decades-long
everywhere.
Like,
TMI.
I'm not leaving. I'm fine.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's got a lot going on.
So let's piece all of that together for anyone who wasn't keeping score. So my parents took me up to Mount Carmel, the equivalent of Mount Carmel,
Dropped you off.
dropped me off, and came back.
with some diapers and a
It's
bottle.
they came back to the Harrisburg area. It's a high spire. And what did you tell me on the way over here?
This
You
was
went
your aunt and uncle that took you, took him in.
No, in my grandparents, her
Oh,
in-laws.
you're okay.
Okay.
My
You're
in-laws,
okay.
Did you say you went out to dinner that night? Like, hell yeah, the kids out of town.
Gone.
Well, we came home. It was on a Saturday, so we came home till we got home was around supper time. So we took a drive out to what used to be.
So your mom and dad were basically having a
Saturday's
like
market.
vacation.
And
Date night.
there's a
Date night.
diner there. There's a diner there, so we went in there for supper, and there was only just a couple of people in there, and the conversations were really very, very hushed. Kind of what happens next. That was kind of what we're all waiting for. But in the meantime, I did think about, well, gee, we left John up there. What if something bad happens
he's
down
fine.
here?
He's fine up there.
And those people are old; they can't take care of him forever. So but that's the way it was.
Well,
And then that's how it was.
That's the way it was.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you would call it. They went out to dinner at a diner that was near
diner right there by the Saturday's Market.
the Big M.
down there.
Yeah.
I think I know where that. If it's the same structure, I think I know what she's
It's like
talking
little
about.
Zap's taken care of. Let's have a date night.
That's messed up. That's just messed up. So let's move on here. Now that we're all evacuated. So with that, the exodus of more than 140,000 people from the area gave rise to, as Rose had mentioned, telephone lines being jammed with frantic callers. You got nightmarish traffic. You got gas stations being mobbed with people anxious to fill up. You got banks, even just harkening back to what Rose had mentioned, banks filled up with people withdrawing their savings, cashing their checks. You obviously are going to have grocery stores that are running out of their products. Ma, Rita, do you recall the panic that I just described? Tell us about your evacuation experience.
I don't remember any kind of panic. In fact, the reason that we took you is we might have used up what food we had in the house, but not knowing, what was going to happen next. So, but I don't recall any traffic jams because we've got from 83 to 81, and once you're on 81 back then, it was pretty good going.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Rose, so you got the hell out of Dodge again as soon as you heard the news to evacuate, if not days before. How did you run into anything I had mentioned?
No. But I do recall still this noise on the radio about evacuations, starting how they were going to evacuate the hospitals, how they were going to evacuate nursing homes. And it was scary. I thought, oh my God.
Who gave the evacuation call? Was it President
Thornburg.
Carter or
No, it was
Dick Thornburg?
It was Thornburg,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sharon, how about you? Again, you got out as quickly as you could. Was there a mass exodus? Everybody's getting the hell out? Or were you stuck in traffic, telephone lines jammed, banks are busy, grocery stores are busy, gas stations are busy?
As soon as we heard about it, we just left.
Okay.
So we didn't have no traffic.
You got out
we were
quick.
first people out.
Early.
Look at that. This speaks
And
volumes.
we didn't have to worry. We didn't have to worry about getting groceries because we were going to stay at a motel.
Yep.
They had restaurants up there. We eat up there. My aunt and uncle's going to cook for us. We didn't have to worry
She
about
just had like a
all
little mini vacation.
Man, she was set.
Yeah,
We had
that was
sheets
nice.
up there. That's where all the sheets are at.
that. Yeah,
Altoona,
the sheets was up there.
Really, the sheets start with that.
Altoona.
I mean, I know that's where they started, but they were around back then.
79.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was right up around the corner from where
I think I
they
got to be a
lived.
billionaire.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow. All right. Well, we've already invoked his name. So President Jimmy Carter arrived at TMI around 10 a.m. on Sunday, April 1st, 1979. So this is but 4 days after the incident began. Now, by the end of that day, this is by the end of Sunday, reports were released that much of the scary hydrogen bubble that had accumulated, this is within that cooling tower, within that cooling apparatus, had been released and that the threat had diminished. It had been minimized. By Tuesday, not just 2 days after that, we're now 6 days after the incident, reports were released that the hydrogen bubble had been completely released. Rita, you're killing me with that noise.
That's a good article right there.
By Tuesday, reports were released that the hydrogen bubble had been completely released and any would-be threat no longer existed. Schools announced that they would reopen that coming Wednesday. That was just 1 week after the incident. So with all of that, dear Rose, how long did you stay outside of the area, and at what point did you return?
We returned that Sunday because, like I said, I thought I had to report back to work on Monday.
Such rule followers.
So 4 days, 4 days out. Sharon, how about you and your family?
Well, I didn't have to worry about going back to work because I didn't have a job, remember?
That's right.
Yeah.
God bless you. God
Yeah,
bless you,
but-
Sharon. That's awesome. Hell with them.
Hell with that.
But I had to go look for another job.
Yeah, there's that. And then you ended up at Channels.
Then I ended up at Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but didn't you say he wanted you back, the guy?
Yeah, he wanted me back, but I wasn't going to give him the
back
satisfaction
there.
because
That's
he
right.
couldn't get anybody else to work the hours that I would work.
That's
And
right.
Red Barn did close
They did.
shortly after that.
I-
It was because of
Because
the
of you.
release of
That's
your
right.
mom.
That's what happens.
No, but he did. I did go back, worked
And
part
spit.
time.
I was going to say, I was waiting to hear you say you spit in his eye.
No, I went back and worked part time, and he put me in charge of all the salad bars, and I went all over Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Set up the salad bar, and it was actually a commercial on TV for it.
That's
Were you
awesome.
in the commercial?
Huh?
Were you on the commercial?
No.
Oh.
They didn't show my face. They just showed my hand.
Hand
Did
model.
you get money for that?
I got a raise.
All right.
But then right after that's when I got, in September, I started at Highmark and I just quit.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
It's like OnlyFans.
That's a really neat
Red Barn
story.
Red Barn OnlyFans.
Red Barn OnlyFans. Yeah.
Hand models.
But Dave was in there every Saturday and Sunday morning.
Hell yeah, I'd be
That-
too.
Oh yeah, sausage.
Sausage,
The biscuits.
yep, he
Were they
loved them
biscuits?
sausage.
I remember those. Yeah.
One of my favorite buffets was the Wendy's buffet. If anybody remembers that, they had like. Did anybody remember the Wendy's?
Yeah, the Wendy's buffet. We were talking about that.
You've mentioned it recently. There's
Yeah.
there's certainly a great fondness. I would argue that Ponderosa's buffet was top notch.
Yeah, but Ponderosa was meant to have a buffet. Wendy's is just like Wendy's.
It's
and they
true.
just threw out like some spaghetti. You're like, what are we eating spaghetti at a hamburger joint for?
Doesn't make
But
any sense. Doesn't make
They
any
had
sense.
nachos. I was like, what do you have nachos for? It's
And
crazy.
I guess so. Now, finally, to you, Mom, Rita, you had again. You only stayed out of the area. Hell, you dropped me off and got the hell back.
Yeah,
They were partying.
went out to eat.
Yeah, they went to dinner.
That's amazing. So you were hell. You left and came back the same damn day.
Yep.
Okay.
He was like, where's our son? Who?
No, man.
And we went back a week later and got him. Brought him back.
Wow, a whole week.
Could have got you the next day. They're like, oh, wait a while. We're still
amazing.
not sure.
I was I worked for the Middletown Journal for a lot of years, and I called my boss today and asked him what he remembered about that. Well, he was only 25 years old himself, but he happened because I remember a photograph in his office of him and Jimmy Carter, and I thought, well, when the president came here, he had his picture taken in Middletown, but it wasn't. He was in Washington for something that the president was having, and that's when he had his picture taken. But he was telling me today that afterwards he went to a borough council meeting in Middletown, and one of the council people said, you know, if this thing had been really, really serious, Jimmy Carter would not have been allowed into Unit 2.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering watching that documentary. Like, I think the president coming was probably a sign of like reassurance.
Well, yeah, they're trying to let people know if the president's here. Even though he probably didn't know at the time what the heck was going on, they just told him,
But-
yeah, it's okay.
But he had a background in nuclear. There was something he had
Nuclear
to do.
submarine. He worked.
that what it
He was
was?
in the
Yeah.
Navy and
In the
worked
Navy,
on
yep.
nuclear submarines.
Man, good one, Matt. Matt
Yeah,
knows. Matt knows
Yeah,
some stuff,
right.
man. Look at that. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Also, you were saying about Middletown. Jimmy Carter, I guess ground zero there was at MCSO building. It's right there across from the Middletown Public Library. If you guys remember where that building was at.
So there's this band, this local fantastic band from back in the 90s called Screwface.
Did you guys play at the MCSO?
They played at the MCSO building.
Oh wow.
Sure did.
But yeah, Jimmy Carter, that's where he made his speeches in Thornburg. They were there at the MCSO building.
This blows my mind. Not for nothing. This was 2 weeks. I'm sorry, not 2 weeks. 2 months. 2 months into Thornburg's first 4 years as governor of Pennsylvania. I mean, 2 months. Come on, man.
You're dealing with this.
Yeah, man. That's bananas. That's not unlike.
I didn't sign on for this.
That's
What are you saying?
It's crazy. All right, let's get a little lighthearted, shall we? So the following Saturday, on April 7th, 1979, this is 10 days or so after the event, Saturday Night Live performed a skit called The Pepsi Syndrome. Within that skit, an accident, not unlike the TMI incident, occurred on a fictional 2 Mile Island when an employee spilled a bottle of Pepsi on a control panel. Do any of you recall watching that episode when it aired?
Did not. I did
No.
not.
No. Okay. No TMI fans. And one final funny. So this is for all of you. So do you think that your son's particular physical detriment might be a result of exposure to radiation from the TMI incident? So
I
for
think
Sharon,
the exposure made us handsome young men.
That's it?
Like, yeah.
Sharon, your son's physical detriment would be his height. Rose, your son's would be his protruding forehead. And Mom, yours would be your son's terribly receding hairline and thinning hair. At all, do you think that any of that is a result of the exposure to TMI?
My forehead is not TMI
His
whatsoever.
was the forceps they used.
Of my
Trying to get you
cocaine
out.
addict doctor, correct? Was he not a cocaine addict?
I think that was with Kimberly, though.
No, I thought that was me with when they forceps with the cocaine
That was-
addict.
According to the
No, the
McDevitt,
forceps.
the McDevitt football program, I'm like 5'10" in there.
Really?
Now I know
they're only as good as the numbers you give
Yeah,
them.
that's exactly
Okay.
it.
I think
You're not
I
that
was
short, are you? No.
5'8".
6'1.5".
Yeah, he's 1 inch or an inch and change shorter than me, but I'm going to remind him of it whenever I can.
That's it.
That's why I try to keep my hair in a little pompadour too, so I look a little taller.
I think you got a lot of hair.
Yeah.
What you say about the detriments or whatever? Like, there was stuff around that area. Like, there was like bunnies that were like oversized.
Frogs
there
with
was
6
Night
legs.
of
yeah, they were taking
Or
pictures of like these mushrooms that were like the
cows.
size of trees, like
Really?
growing. Yes.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, Joyce.
What about
has
the fish? Like all the dead
three-eyed-
fish?
well,
Three-eyed fish?
No,
They said there was a bunch of dead fish that like.
I think
there was
that's from
rumors of that.
The heat that comes out of like that used to be pumped outside. Of
Let's not forget now during this whole thing, which we mentioned in our podcast, just specific to details, over the course of this event, approximately 400,000 gallons of radioactive water was pumped into the river, either inadvertently or on purpose. So you might get some contamination out there, even the slightest amount of that radioactivity could in fact, or that radiation could in fact have an effect. And to this day, there are certainly proponents like, Joyce, like you had mentioned, who, will argue that, yeah, that place is tainted. That place is funky. I wouldn't know what to ask after that. Is it a matter of, have you noticed anything or anything like that? But has there been since, ongoing talks with anyone? I know, is it like more than just a running gag that, you're living near a nuclear power plant? Like, is there a concern? Is there anything?
No, I remember the initial reports were the reports of cancer incidents was astronomical in Middletown. And then like 5 years later, even greater. But then when further studies were done, it really wasn't true because the terrible accident in 1986 at Chernobyl, when there was an explosion, they didn't have nearly the cancer that Middletown was reporting. And so it really eased my mind a lot about what happened.
I wonder if that was actually the result of the steel mill that's up the river in Steelton.
Yeah.
Look, I can tell you, you go into Steelton, every other person has cancer. I promise you.
Right.
It's ridiculous. That you're talking about, for anyone who's not aware, Steelton, Pennsylvania, formerly a bustling, crazy, dynamic town that is built on steel, where the business, the Bethlehem Steel Corporation, is in fact the length of the entire town. We're talking miles long is this Bethlehem Steel plant. I mean, the stuff that they're melting and cooking and putting together and pressing out and doing whatever, releasing into a canal, into the river. I mean, come on. People are fishing there. People are breathing it in. It's bananas.
But also, too, then there was no like a OSHA or no type of safety.
No.
I mean, these were hardworking men that would get up, go to work 12, 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
Enjoy their time off. They all went to, what's that one song that they go to, the shore, like the Allentown thing. They go to like the Jersey Shore for vacation. But there was no type of safety standards. Nobody was coming in and shutting down because, Tommy's working a 16-hour shift.
Right.
Nobody cared.
Yeah, nobody cared. What they were breathing in, whatever they were melting, they didn't care as long as they were making good steel.
So, Rose, you
I
lived closest. Yeah. What was do you still have, or still to this day, or even later thereafter? Like, so, Matt and I, let's say, or Matt, Dave and I are in high school or whatever. So that's, you're talking a couple of decades later. I'm sorry, decade and a half later. Did you still at that point have concerns about TMI? Would it have since then kind of rolled off the memory and not a big deal anymore?
I think so. I think it was not, but you still had that kind of fear in the back of your mind. But I did want to mention that I don't know if we received a letter, and I don't know if it was on a voluntary basis that we did this, but you were talking about the MCO. Was that where they played basketball?
MCSO, yep.
Well, I remember they had a deal where you had to go in to check if you were contaminated at all. I've never done one of those. What do you do when people would go for tanning bed? Look like that. Sort of like a coffin kind of thing where you get in there and they tested you. And I remember going for that. It was kind of,
That's wild.
Man, that is weird.
Yeah. But I don't remember getting results.
Were you the only one that went in there?
No,
Mom?
I
Was
think
there,
there's-
was there
like
other
I-
people? Or?
Some dude set it up?
No.
Just take your clothes off,
It was
hop in
like I
this
said. I
machine.
don't know if we did this on a volunteer basis, but
Why would
we
you
did get a
volunteer
letter
for something like
because
that?
I want to know if I was
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
contaminated.
So
with
was
or
it
if
in
there
a
was
van
anything.
in the building or
It
just
was
in the building?
It was in the building.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
making sure that you weren't
Yeah.
getting one, when somebody wasn't pulling something over
No,
your
there was
eye
a lot.
there.
No, there was no. It was, I think, an official letter.
Wow.
Official like a
It had
referee's
like a
whistle.
letterhead on it and everything.
Yeah, I can make one of
It had,
those.
it had a president's signature.
But then, like I said, I don't remember if we got results from it. Or I
Sharon,
don't remember.
Sharon, years later, you're living in Harrisburg, coming up in Harrisburg. You came back. Everybody's all right, brand shiny and new again. Did, the thoughts of the incident or anything like that, linger in your mind thereafter? Or was it, whatever? Hell, our neighbors didn't leave. Nothing really happened.
I didn't worry about it.
Okay.
I figured if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. That's life.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a good outlook.
I got a fun question I want to ask. Well, I say fun based on, thank God it didn't happen, but let's just pretend the worst possible scenario happened and relocation was necessary. You could never come back to the area. Like, what is one thing from Central PA, like a food product or a restaurant or something that you'd want to take with you if you could, if you had to move, let's say, back to Illinois or in New Mexico, or if we stayed out in Altoona? Is there anything in this area that if, let's pretend this area was uninhabitable and you could never come back, like think of like your Middlesworth chips or your, whatever product or any place or restaurant in this area that you'd like to take along? Or
I think the pictures from when you were born, growing up, you're not going to take them with you when you're running.
that
that's
type stuff, but I
memories.
mean like a product, let's say, like, or a place, like somewhere that like that stuff. Yeah, obviously you take along what you could, but if there's something that's like PA based in Central PA that would go away, like, is there anything here that you'd love, if you could have one thing and you're relocating, like a product or a place or anything, was there anything that you would totally miss? Like, oh, I can't believe I'll never have X, Y, or Z again, whatever it might be. I don't know. Maybe there's nothing that great around here.
Maybe there's not. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they make their own foods. Like I'm running. It's running through my head. I'm thinking of things like Schmidt sausage or
like that type
Middlesworth potato chips or
Tasty cake.
Tasty cake.
There you go.
Because there was talks that it would wipe.
That's everywhere.
It was talks it could wipe out from here to Philly down to DC, like a huge area, like
Yep.
depending on how bad it would have gotten.
If the wind blew the wrong way, it could have taken out New York City.
Yeah, well,
That's
what
wild.
if you guys had to relocate? Would there be anywhere that you would want to live? Besides, like Central PA is closed. Get out of there. So where would you go, you think?
Well, I know when his dad was at the depot, he could have they were asking for volunteers to go to Germany.
Oh.
So we had thought, and I even talked to Highmark about getting transferred to Germany. Could I be transferred over? They said yes.
Dave, you missed out.
Yeah, I know.
But-
Der Espenschurter.
And then it was scary. None of this crap that's going on today with the world, wasn't going on. So
Right.
it was an experience. I would have went, and we would have lived right on base. We wouldn't have lived off of base, and we would have been over there for 4 years. But then I think, what do you do with the house?
Yeah.
You don't want to take and run it out because you don't know what shape it'll be in when you come back.
That's right.
What, our house here, you mean?
So when we lived on Sweat
Well,
Street.
the government probably would take that over.
Yeah.
But it's like, then your dad thought about it more and more, and then he said, nah, we're not going to do it.
No.
It was just too much, And then we only had 2 weeks to get everything organized, and that was too much. And I was a nervous wreck trying what do I take? Do I take this? Do I take that? We just decided not to do it. We just stayed here then.
What about you, Miss App? Back to Illinois?
Probably not. No, I wouldn't go back there. I would have stayed here. I kind of did like up in the coal region. Was kind of nice. It was a nice place.
Okay.
I don't know about now. It's
That's
Not
true.
many jobs up there.
Yeah, it's kind of run down now. They ran out.
Cole's not doing
but
that good anymore.
45 years ago, I think I would have liked it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're in Illinois.
Pardon?
Where in Illinois did you live?
I was born in Chicago, so I was actually raised in the suburbs.
Untouchables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Al Capone.
Chicago.
Yeah.
How about you, Mom? You think you could have talked Dad into going back to Southwest or?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably.
That's where you would have went then.
Probably.
Yeah. And nobody would take anything alone. Nothing from here. Nothing you would you would miss or
These are mothers. They cook their own food.
yeah.
They
Well,
make
not
the
even-
best food.
Yeah, just anything. I can't even think of anything. You know, what do we have around here that would be like other than food products? Like,
Oh, you're talking like seltzers, bologna.
yeah, well, that's all like food
Burks,
based stuff.
ugh.
But like, I guess Hershey Park's
You know,
really the only
I
thing.
always
Gazebo
tell
room.
people, though, never
Yeah, gazebo
forget
room.
who you are, where you came from,
Right.
where your roots are.
That's
And that's
right.
so important. And that's for you guys, that's right here. So
Right.
that's a good thing.
I guess those we really have here is Hershey Park and well, the state capitol and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Take the capital with.
Take
miss
the
you,
capitol.
Capitol.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just take the whole building.
Yeah. Do you know of any people who did not come back to the area that once they left, they just kind of stayed where they were at?
I don't think it was that big of a thing.
No,
Like,
but it's just maybe somebody left and was like, you know what, screw it. Like, we'll just stay where we're at and maybe not move back. I mean, not maybe because they were scared to move
we
back.
got to figure like late 79 going into the 80s. I think people like you had a job, you're rooted. Like people didn't, not like today where you could work online or things like that. I think it's like where you were at is where you were at.
yeah.
I think it'd be hard to just pick up and go just because of something nuclear out there. You'd be like, ooh, that's scary nuclear power.
Yeah. Well, not even that, but let's just say like her job was pretty much gone. Let's say there was somebody like her that was a single mother and that happened. Maybe they left and were like, yeah, I'll just stay here. You know, and like, you know, I can see what you're saying though. Probably it wasn't as big of a deal. I guess after a couple days you realized let's just go back. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had.
I think what Zap has there on one of your fun facts, if you would like to elaborate, or I could just say, you know, how you said no nuclear plants have been built in the U.S. since.
Yeah, I mean, so that's true, and we mentioned that on our last podcast, but it's certainly it's good to mention again that, you know, fun fact, ladies, since that incident, there have been no additional nuclear power plants built in the United States, not since then. So any power plants that are still working or that had been built, everything was prior to the incident on March 28th, 1979.
So you think that says that there was something bigger than what they let everybody know? You think there was something that, you know, that they found out later on that crap, like something big has happened. So it's probably not best, to, especially since Chernobyl also.
So I don't believe that. I do, however, believe that arguably so this scared people. It certainly did. Now there were additional controls put in place, additional processes, procedures, safeguards, all kinds of stuff that was put in place. Also, I'm happy to report that there has never been any deaths in the United States as a result of nuclear power, which is great.
Allegedly.
Look at the numbers. There have been none directly related. And after Chernobyl, so just as this starts simmering down years later, then Chernobyl happens, and then everybody's just scared. So add to that any sort of propaganda. So you've got anti-coal movement. You've got that, you know, it's hurting the bees and the trees and the whales and the snails. And then you have, well, gosh, do we want another TMI? Do we want a meltdown? You know, a scare tactic or two is going to scare people out of wanting nuclear power.
I heard they're reopening it.
Hell yeah, that's a thing. So they closed
Reopening TMI.
Yeah, absolutely. They're restarting that engine.
No.
Yeah, they're greasing it up. They're
No, that thing's been down for
putting some gas in
too
there.
long.
Is there such a thing?
No, I did hear that though.
They're restarting it, bruh.
No, they're not restarting it.
Dude,
That is closed down.
look it up.
TMI.
Look it up.
I think there was.
Was this on the internet?
Yeah, I think that's where I did see it.
Yes.
Or so, no, it was on the
No.
news, I think.
It's on.
That thing is shut down. It'll be shut down for the next 40 to 60 years before you can even go back.
It's gotta cool down or
Turn it into
whatever
a golf course or something like that.
Okay, look it up. Oh, I don't want to put any scare into anybody, but there is trace radioactivity in both bananas and your smoke detectors in your house.
I blame TMI.
There's a beam of light that runs between two poles in your smoke detectors, and the metal on that, whenever smoke breaks that beam, that's why the detectors go off. But the metal that's holding that beam is, in fact, there's a small trace level of radiation in there.
Same with pointers, laser pointers, and things like that. They hold that small trace of radiation.
There you go. So those are some fun facts.
And there's isn't there like a market right across the team, Red Hill Market or something like that, where they have all like fruits and vegetables and stuff?
I think there are all kinds of like little stands.
Is that stuff
out there.
farmed right there by the
I
TMI?
believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that? Is that Bainbridge?
Bainbridge is right above TMI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But thank you, moms, for all coming out for this. This was
Yeah, thank you.
very fun. Informative.
Sincerely, yeah. Thank you all. This is really wonderful. It's so good to have all three of you with us, and we're all fortunate to still have all three of you with us.
Yes, very much.
It's wonderful. You know, we certainly want to have this not only for your wisdom and your experience, but, you know, also for selfishly for our sakes, for nostalgia. You know, it's just good to have family and good to have everybody chipping in on this little project of ours.
Get you guys together with another, like, for a baking show.
Yeah.
Do something on like our favorite dish.
She's a good baker. You probably are too, Rita.
How to cook something.
We'll bring you all together. You could do a restaurant review of your local Red Lobster or a restaurant of your choosing.
We could do a vintage cinema review with them.
Yeah.
Review like a movie from back then. Yeah. No, but we talked about this for months now. We've been talking about doing this and thought it'd be a good idea because we don't really remember. I have that one memory and that's it. And like I talked about the I Survived TMI t-shirts. You guys remember those?
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah. So that's the memory
I
have.
order some of them. Yeah.
I wonder if you can still get, we could probably make them up.
You can make it. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, we appreciate it. It was great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all, mamas.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Yeah. I guess that's it. You guys got anything else?
No, that's good.
So don't forget to find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Dirty Basement and on TikTok at Old Dirty Basement Podcast. I guess that's it for now. So we'll catch you where?
On the flip side.
If we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace. Thanks for hanging out in the Old Dirty Basement. If you dig our theme music like we do, check out the Tsunami Experiment. Find them on Facebook. Their music is available streaming on Spotify and Apple, and where great music is available.
You can find us at Old Dirty Basement on Facebook and Instagram and at Old Dirty Basement Podcast on TikTok.
Peace.
We Audi 5000.